Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into securing the entire modern software pipeline, what everyone's really calling DevSecOps now. If you want to figure out what separates, truly robust security from just like checking boxes at the end, you're definitely in the right place. We've basically used the knowledge from the EC-Council Certified DevSecOps Engineer material as our map here. Think of it like skipping the exam stress, those 100 questions, 4 hours, all that, and just getting straight to the core intelligence. We're pulling out the absolute essentials for securing the whole pipeline,
Yep.
mapping exactly which tool goes where.
Yeah, that's the mission, really. We need to get past just, rattling off acronyms. The aim today is to quickly get the crucial differences between the key security tools, say ST, RASP, SCA, SPAC, and nail down exactly where they fit. Code, build, operate. Because that's how you go from just applying security checks reactively to actually designing security in from the start.
Right, let's start at the very beginning, the code phase. This is where the magic happens, the logic gets written, but it's also, let's be honest, where most vulnerabilities creep in. So before this app even thinks about running, we need static analysis. That brings us to SAST, static application security testing. What's its fundamental job right here, maybe even in the developer's IDE?
SAS is basically your code's first line of defense. It's foundational. It analyzes the source code or maybe the compiled binary, but crucially without running it. Think of it like a really meticulous proofreader checking the blueprints before construction starts. Its purpose is immediate feedback, catching those specific classic flaws that you can spot just by reading the code. We're talking buffer overflows, dodgy coding patterns specific to the language, and the big one, hard-coded secrets left lying around.
Okay, so SAST is like a static X-ray of the code. Sounds pretty thorough, but what's the catch? Where does that X-ray analogy fall short?
Well, the limitation is that SAST can't see behavior. It doesn't know if the code acts weird under pressure or, interacts with the database in some unexpected way. It just sees the structure, the patterns. It finds known structural problems, but it's going to miss things that only happen at runtime, contextual stuff, which is why we need other tools later on. But for this stage, the code stage, catching that low-hanging fruit super early, massive win for secure coding habits.
Absolutely. And speaking of low-hanging fruit, we got to talk secrets again. Every developer knows that heart-stopping moment, realizing you just committed an API key or something to a public repo.
Right.
That risk is just terrifyingly common. How do we stop that specific moment of panic before it happens?
Right. The answer is automation. And it has to happen before that secret even leaves your local machine. You need automated secret and credential scanning. And here's the key part. Integrate it as a pre-commit hook in your version control system, like Git.
Okay, let's zoom in on pre-commit hook. Why is that specific integration point so much better than just, say, running a scan later on the server side?
Because it acts as the ultimate gatekeeper, right there on the developer system. The pre-commit hook automatically checks the code before it's committed. It looks for those telltale signs of secrets, tokens, keys, passwords, and here's the kicker. It blocks the commit if it finds something.
So it actually stops you.
Exactly. It interrupts a workflow, forces you to fix it then and there. It prevents the breach from ever happening in the first place. A scan run later on the server. That just tells you the secret is already in the history. Too late. The hook stops the mistake at the source.
Okay, code's clean, secrets are safe locally. Now we move into the build stage. And let's face it, most of the code running in modern apps isn't even ours, right? It's open source libraries, third-party stuff. So the focus kind of shifts from our code flaws to the risks coming from outside, which brings us to SCA, software composition analysis.
That's exactly right. SCA exists because every time you npm install or pip install something, you're essentially inviting code you didn't write into your project. SCA is all about managing the risk that comes with using that external code.
So if SCFT was the X-ray, what's SCA? What's the analogy?
The SCA is more like the background check or the identity check. Its main job is to keep a list, a manifest of every single open source bit you're using, and then it checks those components against databases of known vulnerabilities, CVEs, common vulnerabilities, and exposures. So if that library you pulled in last month suddenly has a critical flaw discovered, SCA flags it during the build.
Right.
It makes sure you're not accidentally shipping known vulnerabilities from your dependencies. It's dependency management, but purely focused on the security angle.
Okay, that handles the app components. But the app needs somewhere to live. We're not usually racking physical servers anymore. We define environments with infrastructure as code IAC. CloudFormation, Terraform templates. Just like bad app code, bad infrastructure code can cause huge security problems. How do we check those templates before we hit deploy? and maybe expose everything.
Yeah, this is a super important shift, pushing security thinking from just the app layer up to the infrastructure layer itself. And the tool for that is security policy as code static analysis, or SPAC. Sometimes people just call it IAC scanning.
Okay, SPAC. Let's break that down. What's it actually looking at in those Terraform or CloudFormation files?
It's scrutinizing the configurations you've defined. Just like SAST looks at application code statically, SPAC looks at those IAC templates. It checks them against security policies that you've defined, or maybe industry best practices before anything gets deployed. This is huge for compliance automation. It stops configurations dead in their tracks if they violate policy.
Like what? Give me an example.
Like preventing a template that tries to create an S3 bucket that's wide open to the public internet. Or maybe a network security group rule that opens up SSH to the entire world. It catches those configuration security flaws while there's still just code in a file.
So if a dev writes some IAC that, say, spins up a database but forgets to turn on encryption, SPAC can stop the build.
Exactly. It should fail the build pipeline right there.
Saves you from finding out the hard way after deployment.
Precisely. It enforces those security guardrails automatically, programmatically.
All right. We've checked our code with SAST, checked our dependencies with SCA, validated the infrastructure templates with SPAC. Now the application is actually running live in the operate stage.
Right.
But even with all those checks, some attacks only really work at runtime, right? Things SAST couldn't possibly see. We need something active protecting the running app. This sounds like the job for RASP, Runtime Application Self-Protection.
Yes, RASP. Think of it as the application's own internal bodyguard, or maybe an immune system. It's fundamentally different from SAST or SPAC. SAST finds flaws in the blueprint. RASP actively protects the running application, even if there are flaws, by understanding the context of what's happening inside.
Okay, but how does it do that? How can RASP protect against something like, say, a SQL injection attack, if it didn't see the vulnerable code beforehand like SAST would?
Good question. RASP works by instrumenting the running application itself. It sits inside the application process. So when some malicious input comes in, maybe it looks like a SQL injection payload, RASP watches how the application actually handles that input internally. If the application suddenly tries to do something risky because of that input, like trying to talk to the operating system shell or accessing memory it shouldn't, RASP sees that behavior.
The behavior, not just the code pad.
Exactly. It identifies the malicious behavior and blocks it right there in real time.
And the source material really emphasizes that RASP can do this without needing source code changes. Is that the big advantage, that agility?
That's a major operational advantage, yeah. RASP usually attaches itself to the runtime environment like the Java virtual machine or the .NET CLR or a Python interpreter. It acts like an internal security agent. This gives it incredible visibility into the actual execution flow, something a network firewall or even SAST just can't get.
Okay, makes sense. Now moving to the very last step, release and deploy. This feels like it's all about supply chain integrity. We've done all this work. SAST, SCA, SPAC, maybe RASP is ready. How do we absolutely guarantee that the final thing we're about to deploy, the container image, the JAR file, whatever, hasn't been tampered with?
Yeah.
By some insider threat or malware after it passed all our checks?
You need a non-negotiable final check. Mandatory integrity verification. This means you must verify the digital signature and integrity of the build artifact.
A digital signature, like a cryptographic seal.
Pretty much. This check confirms the artifact's validity. It proves that the package you're deploying is the exact same one that successfully went through all the security gates in your pipeline. No changes.
So let's say someone managed to sneak a compromised library into the build artifacts after SCA and SAST gave the okay. This signature check would catch that.
It absolutely should. If the signature doesn't match the expected one, the deployment must fail. Halt immediately. It closes that potential final gap, ensuring what you tested is what you deploy. It's crucial for software supply chain security.
Okay, we've verified the artifact is good, but it's running in a complex setup. Now likely microservices, maybe Kubernetes, maybe the service mesh, handling traffic. Let's shift gears a bit to securing the architecture around the code. In that microservices world, with services talking to each other internally, what's the key thing you need for securing that internal chatter?
Yeah, you definitely can't just rely on network firewalls between services anymore. It's not enough. You have to implement service-to-service mutual TLS encryption, usually called MTLS.
Okay, MTLS.
Oh.
Most people know TLS for website encryption.
hmm
Why the mutual part? Why isn't standard TLS good enough inside my own cluster?
Because standard TLS is usually just about the client verifying the server's identity, like your browser checking a website certificate. Mutual TLS means both sides, the service making the request and the service receiving it, have to prove their identities to each other using certificates before any communication happens.
Ah, okay. Both ways.
Exactly. It's basically the zero trust principle applied right down at the service level. It ensures all that internal traffic is not only encrypted, but also mutually authenticated. This stops dodgy services from moving laterally within your network or eavesdropping on internal API calls. It makes the internal network itself much more hostile to attackers.
Gotcha. Now, that brings us back to secrets again, but this time, runtime secrets. We talked about stopping hard-coded secrets way back in the code phase. But when a running container actually needs a database password or an API key, why is just sticking it in an environment variable, or even worse, baking it into the Docker image itself, such a bad idea architecturally?
Oh, it's terrible. It's an absolute nightmare for auditing, for exposure risk, and especially for rotating secrets. Once a secret is baked into an image or sitting in an environment variable, it's often static, hard to track, and you lose any central control over it. The proper architectural solution is a centralized secrets management vault. Think HashiCorp Vault, Azure Key Vault, AWS Secrets Manager.
A vault. So, like a dedicated, secure database for secrets. What does it actually do for the application?
It provides secure, centrally managed, and highly audited storage for all those sensitive credentials. Instead of the app having the secret directly, it authenticates to the vault at runtime and requests the secret it needs just when it needs it. The vault handles secure retrieval, access control policies, detailed logging of who accessed what and when, and it makes rotating secrets much, much easier. It keeps that sensitive stuff out of your code, out of your config files, out of your container images.
Right, keeps it clean. Okay, sticking with containers, specifically Kubernetes, which is everywhere. Let's say, despite our best efforts, a container does get compromised. What's the built-in Kubernetes mechanism that helps limit the damage to make sure that one compromised container can't easily wreck the whole cluster or the underlying node?
Yeah, this is where the principle of least privilege really comes into play at the container level. We use pod security standards, PSS, or on some platforms like OpenShift, they're called security context constraints, SCC.
PSS. Okay, can you give a concrete example? What kind of restriction might PSS put on a container?
Sure, PSS can enforce rules like preventing a container from running as the root user inside the container, that's a big one, or it might block a container from mounting sensitive directories from the host node's file system, or prevent it from gaining extra Linux capabilities that could let it escape the container sandbox.
So even if an attacker gets code execution inside the container.
Exactly. Even if they get in, these standards severely limit what they can actually do next. They can't easily escalate privileges or access things outside their designated little box. The blast radius of the compromise is kept small.
Makes total sense. Limit the potential damage up front. Okay, final pivot.
All right.
Metrics. We put all these great tools and practices in place, but how do we measure if our security processes are actually getting better, especially around responding to incidents? Which specific metric is all about how quickly we can even find out a security event has happened?
Right. Measuring is key. The metric you're looking for there is mean time to detect, or MTTD. According to the source material, MTTD is really critical for gauging how effective your monitoring and detection systems are. It specifically measures the average time that passes between when a security incident starts and when your team actually detects it. A low MTTD, great, means your visibility is good, you're catching things quickly. A high MTTD, that's bad news. It means attackers could be lurking in your systems for days, weeks, even longer, totally unseen. So here's the final thought, maybe for you, the listener, to chew on. We talked about PSS limiting container privileges as sort of a necessary safeguard at the end. But what happens when you take that principle of least privilege and apply it relentlessly, automatically, everywhere? From the moment you write infrastructure code to how services authenticate to what access your build agents have, how does thinking least privilege first fundamentally change how you design your applications and your entire delivery pipeline from day one? Because that integrated shift, that's really a heart of the DevSecOps transformation.
Absolutely. Use this synthesized knowledge, dig deeper into how these pieces fit your context, and make security an integral part of how you build software, not just something bolted on. Until the next deep dive.